This morning's topic is really about one word. It's about water. And I think I don't need to say much about that. We know that that is a very important issue to all of us as Californians, and certainly here to all of us in the Walnut Creek and Central Contra Costa area. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge the steering committee, the group that brings this together for you every month. That would include Pam Kessler from the Walnut Creek Magazine, Steve Reiser from Airbnb, Cindy Silva, Walnut Creek City Council, Bob Linscheid, of course, our president and CEO, also our chair-elect, Al Del Beccaro, and our immediate past chair, Matt Guichard, and of course myself as the chair. We're going to move right into our next session. Matt Guichard has been our illustrious and amazing moderator now for just about a year, I think. Matt, I think, although I'm not counting. And I want to introduce Matt as we move forward into the agenda. Matt.
Thank you so much, Ron, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for attending this important Walnut Creek Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau Civic Affairs presentation. I want to say the Civic Affairs is really a business advocacy committee of the Chamber. And among other things, it monitors and analyzes public activities and issues that impact the greater business community. I want to give a special thanks to Ernie Avila and John Coleman, who've agreed to come and speak about this issue of water. We have entitled it California Water Crisis. And indeed it is a crisis, but as Ron says, that really the presentation is one word, water. In order to frame our discussion, I'm going to ask that each one of our panel members, Ernie and John, first of all, introduce themselves a bit. I'm going to give an initial introduction of both of them and then let them expand on that and then talk about their agencies with a little bit of some show and tell. So anyway, Ernesto Avila was appointed in March 2016 to represent Division 3, which includes Eastern, Concord, Clayton, and part of Walnut Creek and Pleasant Hill. He began serving as vice president in December of 2020. He has over 32 years of professional experience in planning, environmental compliance, regulation, design, and construction of water and wastewater works and municipal facilities. He's currently principal vice president of a private engineering firm. For the community, he's volunteered for many citizen-based committees and organizations. He's passionate about water issues in his professional life, working on a variety of issues statewide during his career, among other relevant positions. He served as director of engineering at Contra Costa Water District before moving on to become general manager of Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. He also served as executive director for the California Urban Water Agencies and program director for the multi-state Salinity Coalition. He has experience on water projects of all shapes and sizes, including water treatment plant improvements, dam retrofits, and watershed management and habitat conservation projects. Mr. Avila lives in Clayton and is a licensed civil engineer with a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering from Santa Clara University and a master's degree in business administration from St. Mary's College. Now I'm going to move on, and before I let him start talking, I'm going to also introduce John Coleman. John was elected to the board of directors of the East Bay Municipal Utility District, commonly called EBMUD, in 1990, and was reelected 6 times to represent Ward 2, which includes Alamo, Lafayette, Walnut Creek, the town of Danville, communities of Blackhawk and Diablo, and portions of Pleasant Hill and San Ramon. From 1996 to 2000, and from 2011 to 2012, he served as president of EBMUD's board of directors and was elected to serve as vice president in 1994, 95, and again in 2009, 2010, and again in 2021. Director Coleman currently serves in the following capacities: past chair of Freeport Regional Water Authority, chair of the Upper McCollum River Watershed Authority, board member of Contra Costa Leadership Council, vice chair board member of DURWA, the Joint Powers Authority for Recycled Water Service provided by EBMUD, the Dublin San Ramon Services District, and the Maritime Industry Advisory Board of the California State University Maritime Academy, and a member of the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority Advisory Committee in the Israel-U.S. Water Initiative Advisory Committee. John is the CEO of the Bay Planning Coalition, which represents maritime and shoreline interests and issues in Northern California. John holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Natural Resources from the University of California, Berkeley, and a certificate in management from the University of the Pacific School of Business and Public Administration. He currently resides in Walnut Creek with his wife, Lana. So, having briefly introduced the both of you, I'm going to turn to you, Ernie, and let you tell us a little more about you and a bit about your agency.
Matt, thank you very, very much for that very kind introduction. It's an honor and a pleasure to be speaking before the chamber. For the record, I have lived in Walnut Creek, and both my sons were born in Walnut Creek over at John Muir, so I have a very big vested interest in the well-being of this wonderful city of Walnut Creek. And so I know that Cindy Darling can attest to that care in a very big way. Next slide, Oliver. Let's just jump ahead here. So it's an honor to have lived in the area. I've been down the Bay Area for about 40 plus years, and I absolutely love it. I love our organization, love our area. As a small business owner in the Bay Area, I really believe that I've got a lot of common interests associated with the Chamber of Commerce. So I just want to let you know that I can truly understand many of the perspectives that we're all coming from. And this is why I really take my responsibilities and duties as a representative for the area to heart. So what many people may or may not know is that Costa Water District is a special district. It's not part of the county. As a special district, its sole duty and responsibility is to provide a special purpose, and that is making sure that we provide for adequate water supply and water treatment, providing reliable water service to our customers, both among our various divisions. The other thing that's really nice about that is that you all get a chance to elect your representatives for your respective divisions. And for me in Walnut Creek, that's Division 3, and it's been a real honor to be serving the number of years that I have for the organization, both as a staff member and now on the board of directors. One of the things that we don't do is we don't do stormwater management per se or wastewater management, but we do quite a bit of coordination with those respective agencies. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in our next, as the presentation continues. Next slide, Oliver. So this is our sphere, our district where we provide water. Contra Costa Water District provides raw water. We get all of our water from the Delta, and we provide raw water to Diablo Water District, Antioch, and Pittsburgh, and also Bay Point. But we also provide treated water service to the district's treated water service area, which goes from Clayton to Walnut Creek. And we also partner up with our partners over at Martinez as well. The Brentwood area, we have an agreement to provide them treated water out of that area from our Randall Bold water treatment plant area. One thing you can bank on, and one thing that I know that John Coleman and I have very much in common, is we take our responsibility to provide reliable water services to all of our customers. But I just wanted to give you an idea of the breadth and depth of the area that we cover with our organization. Next slide, Oliver. You know, it's interesting. We studied science, I know, in grade school and high school in terms of how water is taken care of. But you think about the duties and responsibilities that we have to think about. It's a very, very comprehensive evaluation it takes for us to make sure we can provide reliable water service. Water obviously comes from snowmelt, what have you, and runoff. As it travels through the land, right, it's going to move on to, it goes over into the Delta after its snowmelt is there and goes into the Delta itself. We then take that water out of the Delta and store it into reservoirs like Los Vaqueros. We take that water, then we convey it to various treatment plants that we have. We pump that up using these pump stations that we have within the system that draw like straws from the Delta. And then we take that water and then we convey it over to our treatment plants, which treat the water. And then we use the distribution system to make sure that you have water that's reliable at the tap. It's a heck of a journey, but every one of those different elements have a tremendous amount of responsibility that our folks really spend a lot of time on just to make sure that every one of those elements are planned for the future. Next slide, Oliver. Probably one of the biggest things that I would note is that we get our water from the Central Valley Project, which is managed by the Bureau of Reclamation. You will hear a lot about the different reservoir water levels throughout in newspapers and in the news. So for us, we get our water from Lake Shasta. And so the health of Lake Shasta has a direct impact in terms of making our planning. And it's one of the things that we look at along with the Delta to see what is our local water supply situation now and in the future. To give you some perspective, to show how dire we find ourselves in right now, this is the second driest year we've ever had since only the drought of 1977 was as bad as what the conditions we're facing today. Lake Shasta, which is where we get our water again, is 25% full. But one of the things that has been really, really important has been the way that our community has responded to conserving water. And also the fact that we have Los Vaqueros Reservoir, which is voted on and supported by our citizens. We currently maintain that reservoir at 67% full. And we do that on purpose because we wanted to make sure we've learned a lot of lessons about drought management. And one of the things that we've always learned is we always want to make sure that Los Vaqueros is as full as possible when we have the opportunity to fill it. So because of the efficient use of water by our folks and our capability with Los Vaqueros, we're in good shape right now with the drought. And I'll talk a little bit more about what other measures we're taking. Oliver, next slide, please. We're currently in the stage 1 element of our drought management plan. Even though the state has called for 15% reduction, we currently are at stage 1 of our plan, which calls for a 10% water use reduction for all residential water use. That makes sure that we're making sure that leaks are being fixed. We require that reduced outdoor watering is being implemented. We work with our customers to make sure that they do little things like make sure when they run the washer or the dishwasher, they run full loads. Those are very, very effective in terms of conserving water. The one thing I wanted to tell you about why I'm not concerned about the 10% versus 15% on the state is that our organization during the last drought, when there was a mandatory 15, 20, 25% reduction in water, we were down at 40% reduction. Our community is one of the most incredible tools and most incredible, absolutely wonderful citizens that we have who are able to respond to these kind of emergencies. Our constituents respond well to these kind of drought situations. When we ask them to conserve, they go above and beyond the call. It was absolutely remarkable. Southern California was having some kind of success, but by God, Contra Costa Water District did an incredible job and its citizens in reducing water use overall. So we have confidence that we're going to exceed the 10% we've called for. We'll know in about another 4 or 5 weeks how well we're doing. Next slide, please, Oliver. One of the most common questions we get is, with water drought occurring, how is it that we're able to provide enough water with the growth in population that's occurring? You know, how are we able to do that? And this graphic is meant to kind of demonstrate that a little bit. When I talked about how well our citizens have done to try to conserve water effectively, the green line shows our population over the last 30 years, where we've gone from 350,000 customers within Contra Costa Water District to 500,000 now. And if you see the blue line, that is the amount of actual water use that the same population has used. So rather than keeping pace with that green line, we've actually been very, very efficient in terms of the integration of best management practices, low flow shower heads, for example, low flow toilets, for example, and also the education process that we've used has been very effective and allowed us to be able to meet adequately and allow for growth occurring in our area. Those same tools and that same planning is used today, and we'll be using it in the future. Oliver, next slide, please. One of the other questions that I get very commonly is, where is our water used typically? And what most folks may or may not realize is that 50% of the water in our respective area is used outside. So this is a graphic that shows, in essence, where the internal water uses and demands are, from faucets, showering, clothes, washers, etc., and the outside landscaping. Now, Average single family household in the wintertime today at Contra Costa Water uses about 150 gallons per day. In the summertime, that goes up to 360 gallons per day. You can see why. You're looking at the landscaping and the watering that usually occurs outside. So that just kind of gives you a little snippet about how consumption is used by our average customer. Next slide, Oliver. So here are a few ways that we're able to accomplish that efficiency. In terms of looking at different resources, we use rebates very commonly and services to try to help our customers be very efficient in the use of water. For example, for commercial customers, we offer rebates on efficient toilets and urinals up to $400 per toilet, $350 per urinal. Commercial clothes washers have rebates of up to $450 per washer. We have a lawn to landscape program where we give $1 per square foot up to $20,000. We provide rebates for irrigation controllers. And the other thing I think that's really most people don't realize, we also provide free water use evaluations. We can come in and work with our citizens to try to make sure that they're using their water in the most efficient way. All that's free and included. Next slide, Oliver. So I mentioned some of these rebates already. For the residential customers, we also include lawn to garden kind of rebates and also the same irrigation controllers. One of the things that most folks don't realize also is that these rebates are available throughout our service area. It doesn't matter if you're a treated water customer or a raw water customer. We have some great rebate programs, and we've got some great municipal customers that we work with to get the word out to folks. Next slide, Oliver. One of the things that we talk about is how do we make sure that we're prepared for the future? Well, one of the things that we do on a regular basis at the board is we do quite a bit of financial planning. When we look at providing reliable water service, we look at water conservation and rebates. We look at different facilities that are going to be necessary to make sure that we're ready for the future. It also looks at contingency planning for droughts. It means, for example, that we work very, very closely with our cities whenever the general plans are being updated to make sure that we have a good handle on what kind of demands are likely to be faced by our respective cities. Walnut Creek, Clayton, Concord, Brentwood, all those areas are coordinated with. And we are very proud of the partnership that we have in that regard. One of the things we also do is we work with our sister agencies like EBMUD to look at projects where we have a common interest in that we can work on together. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in my next slide. Next slide, Oliver. In terms of what's happening at the district and also part of our regional solution process, we're working very hard on the Los Vaqueros Reservoir Expansion Project. This is a very critically important project we're looking at right now. What we're trying to do here is create a regional facility that would allow us to work with 7 or 8 different water agencies in the Bay Area to expand the existing Los Vaqueros so that we can provide a greater level of reliability for the region, but also work with our customers as well and enhance our capability of being prepared to deal with droughts as well. The facility is being looked at. We're trying to increase the reservoir to about 275,000 acre feet from 160,000 acre feet. And partner commitment is absolutely critical to this. This is an expansion that is not being paid for by our customers. We've already made the investment in Los Vaqueros. This is one of the projects that is being heralded as part of the state funding. We're getting $500 million from the state to work on this project to help on a look at regional planning, be successful in regional planning with various agencies. And let's talk a little bit more about who they are on the next slide, Oliver. So we're working with Alameda County Water District. We're working with EBMUD, Grasslands Water District, SFPUC, and others to provide storage water for them at this regional facility. One of the biggest advantages, aside from the fact that we'll be able to help these folks be able to also provide enhanced water supply for them during droughts, I think one of the things that's also a great environmental benefit as well is that every drop of water that goes into Los Vaqueros will be screened. So for fish, we'll have fish screens at every intake. One of the other advantages that it does for our respective customers at Contra Costa Water is that because the water conditions in the Delta are highly variable, their salinity can impact the Delta at any given year, depending on what the water flow goes through it. We have multiple ways of being able to draw water out of the Delta. Wherever the water quality is sweetest, we'll be able to draw from. And these Los Vaqueros facility and the expanded facility would add even more flexibility about how we can put water in Los Vaqueros. I'm going to wrap up here real soon, man. And on the next slide, Finally, the other big thing that's going on right now is we're dealing with an 85-year-old Contra Costa Canal system that's had some issues in terms of we've had some reliability issues here that have popped up of late. We have to deal with landslides that happen on a regular basis during major storms. We've had as many as 270 landslides on the canal. The canal at 85 years old now required quite a bit of leak repairs associated with the canal system. We have water quality that's impacted because we have to deal with algae growth in the open canal system. And we have the unfortunate accident of having drownings along the canal because the canal was built when the area was very agrarian, had a lot of agriculture happening in the area. Now it's in a highly urbanized area. We've had, unfortunately, cars that run into the canal. We've had folks that have lost their lives in the canal system. We work very hard with our education process with schools to keep the kids from going to the canal. But it's just a nuisance, and it's an attractive nuisance from that perspective. So we're working very hard to plan for the future. And one of the biggest programs we have underway is looking at putting the canal in a pipe, like EBMUD and others. And so the photo down here is the beginning of that process. On the right-hand side of the canal system, 50-mile-long canal system, that has already been piped. We've been working on that to get that ready for the future. Now we want to handle the remaining 25 miles, which provides the main water. 100% of our water flows to that portion of the canal system. It is the key artery. If Los Vaqueros is the heart and the Delta is the heart, that's our artery. So we've got to make sure that's reliable and ready for the future. So that's one of the ways we're getting prepared for dealing for these types of issues in the future at the Contra Costa Water District. So that, Matt, concludes my presentation. And I know we'll have Q&A a little bit later on, but I hope that gives you a great overview of our organization. If anybody wants more information, I encourage you to go to ccwater.com, where you can get as much information as you've heard here and then some. And we can also answer any questions by giving us a call. Matt, thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you and your group today. It's a phenomenal honor to be here today.
Well, thank you, Ernie. That's very helpful. In fact, half the questions I was going to ask you, you answered already in your presentation.